Welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast episode. Today's podcast episode is all about the 5 questions that leaders should ask, but usually don't. So, just going to jump right in. And, one of the things that I learned long time ago, early on in my leadership journey, is that so much of the time we don't know what we don't know when it comes to leadership and influence, but more often we do know, but we aren't applying that knowledge. And also, occasionally, sometimes we might know, but we aren't self-aware enough to realize the issue between us and whatever that stands in our way of our goal. So, wanted to dig into it because I think these reflection questions will help us in terms of our leadership ability and our influence with others. And I've said it many, many times, but leadership is influence, according to John Maxwell. But self-leadership is the most difficult task for any of us as a leader, as an influencer, as a person. The art and science behind leading myself so that I can increase my influence with other people is just a lifelong challenge, right? Because we all struggle at times with that self leadership, things that we shouldn't do that we do anyway, things that we don't do that we know we should do. And, again, a lot of times it's just the lack of awareness that these things that we do and shouldn't do, or don't do and should do, are costing us in terms of our leadership and influence. And again, we're not talking in terms of leadership as informal um, positional authority, although this certainly applies if you have a position of authority with other people. But if leadership is influence, all of us have some influence and all of us want more of it. So then the question just really becomes, how can we be more effective at getting more influence? So let's jump in right away. The first question that leaders should ask, but usually don't. Number one, how am I growing as a leader? How am I growing as leader? The irony of it is that a lot of times leaders aren't reading or studying leadership or growing as a leader because they think, well, I'm already the leader. I don't need to, right? But that's a false assumption. We have to continue to grow as a leader, as a person, because what we don't know is holding us back in terms of influence, right? Or what we haven't yet mastered, or the things, the concepts, the principles that we should know but don't, are oftentimes holding us back in terms of our influence. And if we know something but aren't applying it, then we really don't truly know it. So, but that's a question that leaders should be asking themselves. How am I growing as a leader? What am I doing to ensure my personal and professional growth is on track? And I did a post on this, I think just this morning. So much of the time when we read or study or try to learn leadership, it's not because we want to know how to be more effective. It's because we want to actually be more effective, right? So just learning the concepts is not enough. It's actual behavior change. It's actually applying the skill. And I've said this before in a different context, but it bears repeating here. We overestimate the impact of an event. Consistency beats intensity. We underestimate what can happen with the process. So, you as a leader, as a person, need a process or a system or a growth plan that ensures regular, consistent, continued growth, whether that's 5 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes a week, whatever it is that fits you. Then you figure out and be consistent about making sure that that is a priority in your life. I always say that you know what's important to someone. Well, I used to say checkbook, calendar, and conversation, but now we can That's a bit dated term. Nobody uses a checkbook anymore, right? So now I should probably say, what's important to a person by credit card, calendar, and conversation. That is how they spend their money, how they spend their time, and what they talk about. So, reflecting on that, if you don't have anywhere in your calendar that is committed to regular growth, like daily or weekly, whatever that looks like, it doesn't have to be all day. It just needs to be every day. But you, as a leader, should be asking yourself, how am I growing as a leader? Number two question that leaders should be asking themselves, but usually aren't: what type of leader am I? What type of leader am I? And some of you are thinking, I didn't know there were different types of leaders, right? And if that's the case, oh boy, a whole nother level of awareness and world of leadership just opens up for you. Mac and I just recently released a completely free 2-hour online video training on the 5 types of leaders. So really would be highly helpful for you if you want to grow in your leadership skills, or really dig into what type of leader you are. If you don't already know, if you're having trouble answering that question for yourself, what type of leader am I, then absolutely encourage you to check out that online course. Now, completely free, and you already know we don't have email lists to spam you with things like that. So you do have to register on our website because it's the same platform for all our other video courses, but you can find out details on that. It is bluecollarleadership.com/B as in boy, C as in cat, L-A as in apple. So BCLA individual. And that just takes you directly to the webpage that has all of our individual courses. And again, that one is completely free. You just enroll for it, and you can go through, you can download the workbook, a lot like just our other courses, downloadable fill in the blank workbook, and you get a certificate of completion when you go through it. So that is just one of the ways that we add value to people, is we wanted to make sure that we were offering some in-depth insight on the types of leaders. And of course, along with that goes the reflection of, when you reflect on what type of leader am I, then you will be able to walk through those 5 different types of leaders and go self-evaluate, right? What type of leader am I? And what type of leader do I want to be? And that's the more important question to walk away with. Number 3, third question leaders should ask themselves, but generally don't: where is my leadership lacking? Another way to think about this, or another way to rephrase this question, is: where am I missing out in terms of leadership with my team? This is one of those things that until you really sit down and reflect, you probably aren't self-aware enough to just know right off the bat, oh yeah, if I would do this differently, or if I would say this differently, or ask these different type of questions of other people, my influence would be better. This was the case for me as a new leader, is that I often let my task-focused nature get in the way of my influence, right? My leadership was lacking early on in my leadership career in terms of, I was well, I still am very task-focused, but that could hold us back in our leadership ability, because you cannot manage people the same way you can manage objects, right? People have thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And if you are too much task focused or try to manage people like an object, you're losing out on the opportunity to influence and lead them. And that's super important, because none of us want to be treated like an object or managed like a thing. We all want to feel valued as a person, and we all want to feel like our leader, our boss, our manager is leading and inspiring us instead of trying to manage us, dictate, and direct us. So super important there is that asking yourself, where is my leadership lacking, right? Where am I missing out in terms of my team? If I had known if I had known to ask this question of myself, my influence with my team could have been much better, much more effective, much earlier in my growth journey. Number four question that leaders should be asking themselves, and generally aren't: where are my blind spots as a leader? Now, you don't know your blind spots, right? They're blind spots. But it's something we need to be conscious of: A, that we do have blind spots, and B, what are they? And maybe you reflect on this question yourself, But then maybe you also ask either a trusted mentor or someone who's poured into you as a leader, helped you on your growth journey, and um, helped you with some of those insights because they are blind spots because you're not aware of them. I'm reading a book by Andy Stanley, and he shares the story in there of one of the questions his mentor would ask him, and it's a little bit of a humorous story, but Andy Stanley goes on to talk about one of the questions that the mentor would ask of him is, what do you not want me to ask about? What do you not want to talk to me about? And Andy Stanley would be like, no, that's not fair. You got to figure that out. You got to figure out that area of whatever it is I don't want to talk about. But I mean, it's kind of a tongue in cheek, right? But it's kind of a question from a mentor to a mentee to say, whatever you don't want to talk about is probably the issue that we need to examine for one reason or another. Maybe there's something in your, just in your gut that says, "Ooh, I should be doing something differently, but I'm not." Maybe there's a little bit of awareness there that you're not in alignment with your values and your character in terms of who you say you want to be. So whatever it is that your mentor is like, what do you not want me to ask you about? That's a red flag that says, I should probably have that discussion with our mentor, right? Kind of the same thing with blind spots. Asking someone who you trust to be able to help you with that can be really very powerful and beneficial. Number 5 question that leaders should be asking themselves, and usually aren't: what's holding me back and why? What's holding me back and why? So much of the time it is, I would almost guarantee that most of the time, more often than not, what holds us back as a leader is that we are not willing to let go of some good things in order to be able to move on to the great things. The problem is time is, it's finite. There's only so much of it in a day. You can't do all the things as a leader. You'd probably like to. Leaders have a natural inclination to want to do all of the things, but you can't. And growth as a leader often means letting go of some good things, learning to delegate more effectively, learning to say no to some of the wrong things, learning to walk away from um, good opportunities in order to move on to great opportunities. And that's hard because a lot of times we're comfortable in a role, in a job, in a leadership position, and the unknown or change of any kind can be uncomfortable, can be scary. So a lot of times we don't look around for changes because we're not willing to go through those changes, but that's holding us back, right? That might not be the case for you. It may not be that you need to let go of something in order to grab onto something else, but so much of the time in life we can't reach for what we really want because we'll let go of something that's holding us back. And sacrifice is never easy of any kind, personally or professionally. So that is I would say that's a lot of the time, the majority of the time, what holds us back is we say yes to the wrong things, or we say yes to all the things, or we're not willing to let go of some things. And a lot of times that is holding us back. Not 100% of the time, certainly. Sometimes what's holding us back is just a lack of awareness about ourselves, a lack of awareness about our characteristics, our personality, a lack of awareness about how we interact with other people and how that's costing or creating influence in our leadership journey. So it certainly bears reflecting on, though. What's holding me back? Why? Why is it holding me back? And maybe the follow-up question that we're not even going to count it as a formal question, because then we'd have 6 questions instead of 5. What do I want to do about it? Am I willing to change it? Right? Once you ask yourself these questions and you kind of think and reflect on some of the answers, then the natural next step is taking action on making some changes. And boy, we could probably do a whole another podcast episode on the thoughts, the feelings, and the emotions that go into behavior change as a leader. Until next time.